Hi, I'm Heather. Welcome to class. Today we're going to do a short backbending sequence. Before we begin, if you find this video helpful, be sure to like and subscribe. We're going to start in a supported variation of Matsyasana. We'll be using a brick, and if you can manage with the blade-shaped brick, so it's sitting up on this height, that would be optimal. If it's really difficult though, you could flatten the brick. Some may need some support for the neck when we take the head backwards. Some people's necks don't particularly like that. So you could roll up a blanket and have that as support for the back of the neck and then perhaps the back of the head there. So when we set up, we sit forward of the brick. So the brick's certainly not coming into the lower back. We want it coming more into this upper back. So you can lean back and make sure you feel the brick is in the right spot. So you see how far away the sacrum is from the brick. And it feels as if the brick is directly underneath the breastbone, so that when I lie back, it's causing this lift and this spread through the breastbone region. Now, as I said, if your neck needs support, roll up a blanket. Make sure it's bulky enough to offer support. But if you find that in an effort to bring the head back and down, your hips need to lift, you may need to put support underneath your hips. Put a folded blanket perhaps underneath your hips. We do want the back to arch, but if it's really challenging and particularly uncomfortable, then you can flatten your brick. Then we turn the palms out. The arms can be out a little distance away from the body. And you can extend the legs. So legs can be together or apart, hip width apart. You decide, but work the inner thighs down. So we're not just letting the legs roll out. The inner thighs are rolling down. It can be helpful to bring those inner legs together so you can really feel the legs, feel the position of the legs and the feet. But the head's thrown backwards. Unless you suffer from vertigo, we're throwing the head backwards. If you do suffer from vertigo, you need to give yourself more support underneath the head so that you're not tilting your head backwards. And you feel the impression of the brick, pressing the spine up, mobilizing the thoracic spine so that it's causing a lift through the chest. So we've got the sternum, the front of the chest, and then the armpit chest, those 3 points lifting. Be conscious of your breath. Now, as you're ready, bend your knees so the feet are on the floor and use your hands. Lift your head up so that the head and the neck are supported, and then carefully roll over to the side to come off your support. So you're coming off and sitting up. Now that movement of drawing the thoracic spine in to open the chest is what we're going to bring into our upward facing dog pose. We're going to use the chair so that we're in a higher position. Place the chair on one end of your mat. Take your hands on either sides of the seat of the chair. And if you're concerned about the chair slipping, then put your chair against a wall. But we walk back as if we're doing downward facing dog pose. The feet are apart, the legs are strong, you're pressing the thighs back, and the arms are straight. Press the head of the thighs back, open the back of the knees. But now we come forward for upward facing dog pose. So you look forward, Bring the chest forward, and to continue bringing the chest forward, bend the elbows out to the sides, scoop the chest through so that your chest is sitting further forward than the line of the upper arms, and then straighten your arms. Ideally, the pelvis is coming to your forearms. Can your pelvic bones touch your forearm bones? Rather than being too far back, in which case the chest is not opening as much as it could and the weight is really sitting heavily in the lower back. It's very uncomfortable. Walk in enough, move the chest forward enough, and move the pelvis forward enough that your pelvic bones are touching your forearms. And then feel the impression of the brick in your upper back. We were just laying back over the brick a moment ago. Can you feel the brick moving the thoracic spine deeply into the body to open the sternum? And then pull the hips back. Let's have a moment of rest, resting the back. But you're still activating the legs. Thighs are pressing back. Now again, we come forward to our upward facing dog pose. So as we come forward, bend your elbows, scoop the chest through, and then straighten your elbows. Then press your shoulder tips back. So rather than having the shoulders roll forward, can you press your shoulder tips back and drive your arms into the chair to lift up? Again, rather than dropping down, which means usually the shoulders are lifting and rolling forward, can you push down into the chair, rebound your chest and your spine upwards, and then pull back. Have a moment of rest here. Arms and legs are straight. And again, let's come forward. So bring the torso forward. Scoop the chest through, pelvic bones to your forearms, press your shoulder tips back. Then firm up the thighs. So your shin bones are pressing up, legs are strong and straight. And as you lift your chest, press your shoulder tips back, look up. Keep space there in between the base of the skull and the back body. Yeah, so you're not collapsing like this. Push away from the chair. Lift the base of the skull away from the back body as you look up. And then pull back. Pull back the hips and rest the heart. And then you can look forward, step forward, and stand up. We're going to utilize a belt for the next pose. So let's bring in our belt. I'm going to turn my chair the other way so that you can see from this perspective. We make the loop in the belt. It's certainly longer than our shoulder width, and this is something that you're going to have to navigate. Well, how wide do you need it to be so that you can put the belt to the base of the skull and around the thumbs so that the arms are straight. Now, if we have our head neutral, the arms are on a diagonal, but you want the belt to be firm so that when we lift the head to look up, the arms are lifting like they would for Virabhadrasana I, Warrior Pose 1. You lift the arms and the belt is supporting the head. It's preventing the head from dropping. Feel the length in the back of the neck there. And then come back to neutral, head neutral, arms diagonal. And then again, lift the head, look up, stretch the fingertips up, draw up through the sides of the body and use the pressure of the belt as your thumbs are lifting the belt up. Use that to encourage the lift at the base of the skull. And then back to neutral. And let's do once more. Stretch the arms up, a Virabhadrasana I expression. Lift up the fingertips. Watch that you're not kicking the lumbar spine in. Can you keep the lumbar reasonably neutral and focus on the length in the back of the neck as you take the neck into extension. And then come back to neutral. Remove your belt and let's have a rest there. Relax the arms. Now let's put our props away And we'll set for Virabhadrasana I, the full pose. So hands can sit on the waist, take your legs wide, and stretch the arms out wide now as you turn completely to the right. So I'm going to mirror you. Turn completely to the right, plug the back heel, stretch the arms up. But let's just start with the hands shoulder width apart. As you stretch the arms up, lift through the sides of the waist and roll your left hip forward. Inhale. Bend the right knee as you exhale. Keep the back heel pressing into the floor. Bend down as deeply as you can manage, bringing your right thigh more and more parallel to the floor. And then as you look up, perhaps you can bring the hands together. Remember the impression of the belt around the base of the skull. Stretch up the fingers and the thumbs and prevent the base of the skull from dropping on the back body. Then stand up as you inhale. Take your arms out wide to shoulder height. Turn through the center all the way to the left. So you turn that back foot in enough that you can move your right hip forward. Raise the arms. Inhale. Stay there for a breath. Feel the sides of the waist lift, sides of the chest lift. Then we prepare to bend that knee. Inhale. Bend the front knee as you exhale. Keep the back heel plugging down. Bend down as deeply as you can. You may need to scoot the foot further forward so you've got enough of a stance, a wide enough stance to accommodate the deep knee bend. Then as you look up, can you bring your hands together, stretch up with straight arms, and when you look up, don't collapse the head onto the back body. Keep some space between the base of the skull and the back body. Then stand up, take your arms out to shoulder height, turn through the center, hands on the waist, and let's step the legs in. We'll be in Tadasana for a moment. Legs together, stretch to the fingertips. And release. So Virabhadrasana I is known as a standing back bend. It's a great pose in and of itself to practice, but it's also good in a back bending sequence to help open the front of the body. We're going to come down onto our abdomen now for Salabhasana and Dhanurasana. So if you need extra padding underneath your front body, you can put a blanket down. But let's come down. So you're lying on the abdomen and bring your forehead to the floor. Stretch the arms back alongside the body. Back of the hands on the floor. And then bring your big toes to touch. The inner heels can be apart, as if you're slightly pigeon-toed. Roll your inner thighs up. So the kneecaps are off the floor. The shoulder tips are off the floor. Then keep the back of the hands pressing into the floor, shoulder tips away from the floor, and raise the head up. So you're starting to look forward. And note, we want space between the base of the skull and the back body. Go on pressing the back of the hands into the floor so that it provides you with the impetus to press the shoulder tips away from the floor. So it's causing more space. Space across the collarbones and space in the back of the neck. Okay, then we can come down so you can relax the knees down. Feel free to bring your arms forward, rest your forehead on your forearms as you rest. Then we go again, similar setup. So again, start with the forehead on the floor. Big toes touch, back of the hands on the floor. Now, raise the head up. So we've still got the front feet on the floor. We've got the back of the hands on the floor and the shoulder tips pressing away from the floor as you're looking forward. Now, raise the legs. You can separate the feet to make it a bit more accessible. Raising the legs with the knees straight, and then raise the hands. So arms are coming parallel to the floor, but pull the hands back towards the feet as the shoulder tips press away from the floor. Keeping space between the back body and the base of the skull. Then come down, and again, you might like to bring the forearms forward. Rest your forehead on your forearms as you relax there. Now we go for Dhanurasana. So you might like to keep your head off the floor as you bend your knees, reach your hands back to catch whether it's the front feet or the ankles. So if it's difficult for you to take a grip, you can put your belt around the ankles and hold on to your belt. And that may be difficult because the knees don't like bending. It may be difficult because the shoulders feel tight or because your back feels restricted. So you decide, do you need a belt? But then you peel the toes back. So the feet are somewhere between being plantar flex, which is completely pointed, and dorsiflex, which is completely pulled back. The balls of the big toes are pressing up to the ceiling. And then you pull the heels away from the buttocks. Remember the impression of the brick in our upper back at the beginning of class. Move the thoracic spine in towards the sternum. Arms as straight as the heels pull back. It's helping to roll the shoulders back. And then lift your knees off the floor. So thighs coming off the floor. You're resting on the abdomen between the pelvis and the ribs. The strength of the legs is helping to roll your shoulders back. And then come down. Have a rest. Feel free to bring your forearms in front to rest your forehead down. Now we're going to go again. We're going to come into a Dhanurasana once more, the bow pose, but we're going to roll over onto one side for Pasrva Dhanurasana, the side bow pose. So let's bring ourselves into Dhanurasana. Catch the ankles or the front feet. Lift up. Pull the heels away from the buttocks. Lift the thighs off the floor. Now to roll onto the right side, you're going to pull the right thigh down to the floor and give the left leg a bit of a tug so that as you pull the left knee back, it rolls you onto the right side. And so you're still in Dhanurasana. You're pressing the hips forward, keeping the heels pulling away from the buttocks and the shoulders rolling back. Then to come back onto the abdomen, we bring the left thigh closer to the floor, roll back onto your abdomen, lift up. Now to come onto the left side, you pull that left knee closer to the floor and give the right leg a bit of a tug. So you're using that leg to roll over onto the left side of the body. Press the pelvis forward. Keep pulling the heels away from the buttocks, the shoulder tips are rolling back. Then to come back onto your abdomen, bring your right thigh to the floor, roll back onto the abdomen. One last lift, Dhanurasana, and then you can come down and rest completely. Now we're going to start to release from the back bend. So press into the hands, come onto the knees, bring your big toes together, knees apart, and we'll stretch forward. Now feel free to have the forearms crossed there so that your forehead can rest on your forearms. Relax the hips, so buttocks relaxed, thighs relaxed, knees relaxed. Just feeling here the lower back lengthen and broaden. And as you're ready, come up and we'll do a spinal twist to contribute to the spine releasing from the back bend. So from our kneeling position, you take your feet over to the left so that you're sitting on the right hip. Now, it can be helpful to use a prop underneath the right hip. I'm not going to use one for the purpose of keeping this practice simple. But if you've got a blanket or a brick handy, you can definitely put that in under the right hip. Keep the head of the left thigh down as you twist away from the feet. So we're doing Bharadvajasana. Turn to the right. Your feet are to the left and you're twisting to the right. Then come out of the twist and we take the feet to the other side. So your feet are off to the right. The knees are about hip width apart. And again, if you've got a prop nearby, you can wedge a brick or a blanket there underneath your left hip. Do intend to keep the head of the right thigh down as you twist away from the feet. Turn to the left. and come back to center. That's our short, simple practice for today. If you enjoy practicing with me, I invite you to check out my video library on my website, heatherkitchenyoga.com.au. There's an extensive video library with over 400 classes, and I'm adding new classes to it every week. You're welcome to start with a 7-day free trial. That's it for today. Thanks for joining me. For more in-depth teaching, check out the video library on my website, heatherkitchenyoga.com.au. The link is in the description box below.